Morning all and welcome back once again to I Like Watches. I've got quite an interesting one for you today because the Marlow Watch Company have lent me a Coniston Black Edition, and there is quite an interesting backstory to this watch, and the movement inside it is quite interesting as well, and there's lots going on with the dial which makes it quite interesting to look at. So yeah, should be an interesting one. Before I head over to the Lightbox to show you this watch, I'm going to cover the quite an interesting backstory part. So it's called the Coniston because there is a stretch of water in the UK, in the Lake District, called, well, Coniston Water. And it was the location for some water speed records set by Donald Campbell in the 30s, I believe. And some of the proceeds of these watches go towards a trust to help maintain the Bluebird vehicles, both land and water-based vehicles that were used to set speed records. So that's pretty cool. It's a very British brand, a very British watch, and a very British cause, although the movement isn't British. Let's head over to the Lightbox and I can show you the watch and talk to you about the movement. So why am I focusing on the movement inside this watch so early on in the video? Well, it's because it houses a Miyota 8000 series movement, and the Miyota 8215 has given the 8000 series Miyota movements a bit of a bad rap, and this is a premium micro brand, and this watch costs £349. That's over 400 US dollars. So I suspect there's a few people out there seeing this watch, seeing the price, seeing that it houses a Miyota 8000 series movement, and almost switching off immediately. But I can assure you not all 8000 series Miyota movements are made equally. The movement inside this watch costs twice that of the 8215 to replace. It is a hacking hand wind 8N24, and this is, as you can see, the gilt version. Now, to replace this movement, the movement alone is going to cost you £60, not dollars, £60. You can buy an 8215 for £30, and this watch doesn't appear to suffer with the usual problem that the 8215 has, which is that stuttering seconds hand. And I also put this watch on my time grapher for an extended period of time to test the movement. I was looking to see how stable it was. I was looking for rogue ticks, and I got to say it performed very, very well. Decent beat error, decent amplitude, good accuracy, stable accuracy as well, fluctuating between +5 and +7 seconds a day. So I'm not seeing anything with this movement that would concern me, similar to what you would expect to see in the Miyota 8215. And the other good thing about this movement is it's a no-date movement, and this watch is a no-date dial watch. So there's no ghost position on the crown, and actually the crown action is very nice. Pulling the crown out feels quite satisfying. It's got a very positive action. It's very smooth, and the winding action is nice. So yeah, I don't think the movement inside this watch should put anybody off, although I'm not wild about the colour, but still, it's a good movement. So a good backstory and a surprisingly good movement inside this watch. But for me, the star of the show is, well, just the design, I have to say. The case design, but primarily the look of the watch, the dial, the hands. It's very original. It's really cool. Lots of layers, lots of little subtle details. I've taken lots of macro shots of this watch, and I'm impressed. And one of the things I really like is this loomed ring in the dial, and in the dark the second hand isn't loomed. So what that means is the arrow at the end of the second hand creates what basically contrasts fantastically well with this loomed ring, so that becomes very, very visible. I love the style of hands that they've gone for. They look very original. The finishing is really, really nice. The case shape is nice. Again, very original, very unusual. Huge flat surface on top of this watch, which almost hides the lugs to some degree. It means you focus, well, all your attention on the face of this watch. And I love that polished bezel, which finishes flush with the sapphire crystal. Plenty of AR coating. Really nice hour markers as well. Everything seems to line up perfectly. I love this extra ring around the outside of the dial. which seems to be quite high up, almost right under the crystal. It's got the 1 to 12 on it, look. A few different textures and finishes in the dial. British made at the bottom, and I like that. I got to say, I like that. I've said in a recent video, I'm not wild about Swiss made being written on the dials. Well, it's not so much that I don't like it being written on the dials. I just don't think it's that important. And I think more brands should do this instead of perhaps opening up offices in Switzerland and then putting Swiss movements inside them and then, you know, putting Swiss made on the dial. British brands using Swiss made, I don't like it. I don't know why, it just triggers me a little bit. Nice strap as well. Good to see them putting this watch on a quality leather strap. All too often watches like this come on, well, almost disposable straps to some degree. And this is the black edition, so black strap with contrasting stitching and almost similar sort of contrasting colours on the dial, but lots of black. They've done this with a few of their watch models. They refer to it as the black edition. And yeah, it's nice, isn't it? Nice strap, definitely. 100 meters of water resistance as well. Screw down case back, screw down crown. A few specifications under that crystal in the case back look. And this movement is actually a skeletonized movement. I think that's one of the reasons why it's quite pricey, this movement, compared to your standard 8000 series automatic movements. You don't get the benefit of seeing the skeletonized movement, but still I think it's a good choice. And yeah, I'll test both crystals in a moment. Steel finishing is good. Polished surfaces seem nice and bright. I'm not seeing any brushed surfaces actually. The top of the bezel is polished, look, and that seems to be very nicely done. The rest of the case is polished, and you've got this sort of coin edge or sort of grippy edge to the bezel. It doesn't rotate. That was the first thing I did, actually grab the bezel in the unboxing and tried to twist it. But why would it rotate? No need for it to rotate at all. But yeah, nice contrasting finishing. Right, I'm going to test the crystals. I'll also test the lume at the end of the video. I'll do the usual 5-minute lume degradation test just to see how much the lume degrades over a 5-minute period. That's long enough just to give us some indication as to whether or not the lume is any good. Right, the crystal at the front is definitely sapphire. What about the back? Sapphire sandwich? Yay, sweet. That's pretty cool. Right, here it is then on my roughly average sized wrist. Dimensions and weight in the bottom right hand corner. It wears bigger than the dimensions suggest, and that is because, well, the face of the watch is the widest part, and it's also the part that's closest to your face. And so yeah, that gives the impression the watch is perhaps bigger than it actually is, but I don't think it looks too big for me and my average sized wrist. The strap was quite stiff. That does indicate that it's a good quality strap and it's going to last. But yeah, if you want this to fit comfortably straight out the box, you're going to need to have a little fiddle with that strap just to soften it up a little bit. But yeah, it probably wasn't the variation of this watch that I would have chosen, but I actually like it. It's definitely grown on me. Splash of colour with that second hand and that loomed ring on the dial. Some interesting design features on this watch, and £349. I think that's a pretty good price as it turns out, despite it having an 8000 series Miyota movement in it. I really don't think this movement should put people off. I can totally understand why the 8215 puts people off spending £350 on a watch, but yeah, I'm not seeing any issues with this movement to suggest it's not worth the money. So yeah, £349, and some of that money goes towards that trust, of course. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what else they have to offer. Definitely a micro brand to keep your peepers on. Right, guys, let me know in the comments section what you think of this watch and the review. And please, guys, don't forget, click that subscribe button and, yeah, come back for more. Cheers, guys. Take care.